Is there a proper way to speak? That is the topic of today's video, and I'm going to unpack this, and I think you're going to find it really interesting and very helpful as well. So stay tuned if this resonates with you. Before I get going, if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And also, if you enjoy my videos, please like, comment, and share. And finally, all the links are below if you're interested in working privately with me. Don't forget, I have a special 4-week private voice coaching program, Your Vocal Breakthrough, available till the end of this month to purchase. So please get in contact with me if you're interested. It is an incredible opportunity to really begin to break through your limiting vocal habits, speak with greater confidence, greater power, greater certainty, and greater clarity. Which brings me on to today's topic. So, is there a proper way to speak? From my perspective, the answer is yes and no, of course. Yes, in terms of how your voice functions, how to optimally produce sound, how to get the voice out. No, in terms of the accent. Now, I think the confusion comes because that question probably might have triggered some of you. Is we think when we talk about a proper way to speak, we're talking about a specific accent or a specific way of sounding. And I'm going to talk first of all about historically where that came from, because that used to be the case. That used to be 100 years ago. That used to be true. But the world has fortunately moved on a lot. But as I say, there is still an optimal way to speak. It doesn't matter what your accent is. It doesn't matter what your dialect is. Fundamentally, we all have the same instrument, the same equipment. We've all got a larynx, we've all got lungs, we've all got lips, we've all got a jaw, we've all got teeth, we've all got a tongue. So we've got the same basic equipment. So there is a optimal way to produce sound, which is essentially what we're doing when we speak. So I'm going to talk about this in more depth, but I want to start by telling you a little bit about where I got the idea for this video from. Last week, I was at an event and I was talking to a lady, I won't mention her name, but I was talking to a lady that focuses particularly around public speaking training. And obviously, I was telling her what I do. And to summarize our conversation, paraphrase, her philosophy was voice training wasn't really necessary or required for most people because she felt that it removed the individuality and the uniqueness of a voice. And I realized there was a massive misunderstanding out there. Now, I'm sure there's other people that probably would agree with her that I'm just going to focus on public speaking training because there's nothing really wrong with my voice. It kind of works. And actually, if I go down the voice training road, they might make me sound like everyone else. And I'll lose that individuality, that uniqueness, that ironically, that authenticity. Now, my whole philosophy around the voice is bringing more of you to the table, actually you getting out of your own way, physically, emotionally, and psychologically, to allow your true voice to emerge. And the truth is, most of our habits are habitual. They are conditioned, they are programmed. They are not our true voice. So what she perceived to be individuality and uniqueness and character in the voice, from my perspective, and it depends on what it is, but is often just a voice that's shut down. It's a voice that's scared to be heard. It's a voice that's learned it's not safe to express. And my philosophy is really when you get out of your own way, you learn how to use your voice, you can be more expressive, more authentic, and actually more of your uniqueness, your individuality, and the character of your voice can actually come through. And there's actually a really great quote that was shared with us when I started my voice training back in 2009 from a dancer, La Marie, I think her name is. I will look it up and I will put it on the screen. But essentially, it was along the lines of the only reason to master technique is to ensure the body does not interfere with the soul's free expression. And I couldn't agree with this more. And that is the truth of this. The more you really learn and understand your voice, the more you get out of your own way, the more you start to see what you perceive to be the uniqueness and the character in your voice is actually often just your own fear of expression. Then actually this whole other level of voice can emerge. this whole other level of expression can emerge. And that's what this lady didn't really get. And so my guess was she'd never had any voice training because she didn't really know what was possible. She didn't really know what was actually possible with her voice. And she saw it all as, I'm going to make everyone sound the same. Because actually, most of what I think she was thinking of as individuality and character in the voice is really a voice that is afraid to express. It's raspy, it's croaky, it's shut down. The voice is in the throat, it's weak, it's quiet, it's mumbled, it's monotone. Now, you might want to think about that as, well, that's authentic to me, but it's habitual. It's not your true voice. And that's really where my philosophy comes in, that anything that limits and hinders your voice is not your true voice. And actually, when you get out of your own way, as Lamourie says, from a dancing perspective, there is that free expression from your heart, from your soul. And that's actually what really connects you to people. So let's talk about, first of all, because as I said, historically, she's correct. So go back 100 years, people were taught to speak in a particular way. Certainly in England, I can't speak for the whole world, but let me just focus on England because this is where RP was really born, received pronunciation. And it was the accent of the middle and the upper classes. It was very much an accent, not so much of geographical location, but very much around social standing, social status, cultured, educated, sophistication. So if you wanted to sort of move up the ranks of social standing, then you had to learn to speak properly. And think about Eliza Doolittle having elocution lessons. And so in fairness to her, I think that's what she thought of as voice training. Voice training is elocution lessons. I'm going to teach you not only how to project your voice and how to intonate more and how to sound more engaging and greater dynamics, but I'm also going to teach you how to pronounce words, because that's what used to happen. Now, that might still happen with certain coaches if you go down the elocution lessons path. And for me, that really is the difference between the two, because there's lots of overlap, of course, but the key difference is you are taught how to pronounce words with a specific accent, like a standardized English accent, which often has its roots in the RP accent. So again, there's nothing wrong with RP if that's authentic to you, but if you are changing your accent to try and make yourself sound more educated, then that isn't very authentic. So to come back to this then, I really did understand where she got this idea from, because historically that's been the case. And perhaps she'd had an experience in the past where maybe she had done some voice training, but it was more elocution lessons. So I want to differentiate between elocution and what I do, which is actually revealing more of your true self, your true voice. Because the more you get out of your own way, the more expressive you can be, the more authentic you can be, the more unique you can be, the more character and individuality you can actually bring to your voice. It is the opposite to what you might think. So just coming back to the RP then, so if you go back and listen to recordings of people speaking at that time in the middle to upper classes, the BBC adopted the RP accent in 1922 as their standard accent. So if you listen to reporters of that time, they all basically sound the same. If you listen to actors and actresses of that time, they've all got that accent as well. So they were very much trained to speak in the same way. And so, yes, then they did lose their individuality. They did all sound the same. And even today, if you listen to royalty, aristocracy, it's very much a social accent. It's all about fitting in and being socially accepted in particularly the upper classes. But as I said, this has completely changed now. Some form of RP, I think, is still used as standard English. If you are a foreigner learning English as a second or third language, there probably is in England, again, not in America or not in Australia, but if you're in England as a foreigner learning English, there probably will be some form of RP, not to the extreme that you would have heard in the 1920s, but it's certainly in terms of how certain words are pronounced. But what I'm saying is that isn't necessarily authentic to you. And so when I work with clients, it's really about how can I open the voice that's in front of me? How can I allow your voice to emerge? And that's really about removing a lot of the muscular tension that we place around the voice, particularly when there's a lot of fear of expression, whether it's in the throat, in the jaw, in the tongue, in the chest. It could be anywhere, but it's really about removing all of these muscular blocks that we put on the voice and then working on the internal emotional blocks that we put on the voice as well, that it's not safe for me to express myself. It's not okay for me to have an opinion. It's not okay for me to share my ideas. And then when you combine the two, you get out of your own way emotionally and you remove the muscular blocks. That is when your authentic voice comes out. And we don't need to worry about what the accent is because what will come out will come out. So I'm never teaching you how to pronounce words unless English is your second or third language and you've never seen a word before and you don't know how to pronounce it, then I would share how I would pronounce it. But certainly when I'm working with people, which I do from every corner of the globe, the US, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, you name it, Singapore, everywhere, I'm working with the accent in front of me, and my job is to help you get out of your own way so more of this can come out. So that's why I say, yes, there is a proper way to speak, but very much from a functional perspective, very much from a maximizing and optimizing the voice. It's not about you adopting a new accent to be considered proper. So I want to leave you with that, because if there's any limitation with your voice, just know that isn't your true voice. That's your habitual voice, your programmed voice, your conditioned voice. And on some level, that is protecting you, that is serving you emotionally to help you avoid something. And so that's why we have to do the emotional work. But when you get out of your own way emotionally and you have the tools to really build a solid foundation of your voice, then the expression of what's possible with your voice can go to a whole other level. So it's never about me trying to make you sound like someone else. So I wanted to do this video because how many of you thought maybe voice training was about adopting a specific accent? Because if that is, I can completely understand why you might think that, but the world has moved on. And I think the reason people don't really get this is because they don't know what's possible with their voice. And most people, and I've done videos on this before, think that what comes out of their mouth is really as good as it's ever going to get. But I promise you, if there's any limitation on your voice, that is your conditioning, your programming, and it's not what's possible. So if you want to find out what's possible, get in contact with me, work with me for that month, and I will blow your mind with the potential in your voice. It is there, that authentic expression can actually emerge more freely when your voice is functioning really well. And that's what I want to leave you with today. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week.